Hello and welcome to another edition of the SimNFL show, real talk about fake sports. I am your host and commissioner. You can call me Pierce. Today we are covering week 2 of the 2024 season of the Pro Sim over at simfba.com. If you're unfamiliar, come check us out on the website or on Discord. We would love to have you. On today's show, as I said, we're going to be breaking down everything in week 2, all the best games and statistical performances and game summaries. I will wrap that all up with my players of the week. We'll do a brief injury report as always. And then our analytical portion today is called Tail or Fade. We're going to be looking at a couple of teams that have had some rough starts and see if I think they will rebound or continue on their current path. We started things off with an absolute blowout win on Thursday night. Washington Commanders going all over the Houston Texans, 58-0. Texans still without a point through 2 weeks, so a tough start for rookie Hiram Morand. Although I will say Ryan Johnson still looking good there. Jerome Morrison, 351 yards and 4 touchdowns, so the Commanders absolutely rolling again in their second week. Houston Texans still trying to find their way with a very young offense. Meanwhile, as we get into Sunday, we had another one-sided game with Miami triumphing over the New England Patriots. This one might look close on paper, but in fact it was 34-3 going into the final quarter when Miami put their backups in, and then the Patriots scored a few sympathy points there. Dean Hammond's absolutely in mid-season form, over 350 yards from him. As far as the Patriots, I do love that Lions to Njoku connection. I think that's going to be very good in time. Njoku with 151 yards today. But the team as a whole still struggling to keep pace with the rest of that very tough AFC East. So big division win for the Dolphins in that one. Another one that was not as close, Buffalo Bills over the Jaguars 28-13. Jaguars only touchdown was a defensive touchdown with just a few minutes to go by Lauren Carnes, who had a great game otherwise. But two young quarterbacks in this one, Matt Howard and Yusei Asensio, facing off. Sadly for their teams, only about 200 yards and 2 interceptions between them. Real star of this game was Michael Torgler with 211 yards and 3 touchdowns, really carrying the Bills to victory with that ground attack. The close game of the early set was the Bears defeating the Steelers 23-20. Both of these quarterbacks were their top rusher on their team. So Lewis, 154 yards on the ground, 300 on the air, and a touchdown each way. Robert Morris, over 260 combined yards and a touchdown each way as well. So Pittsburgh came out to the early lead in this one, 10-0. But Chicago came back to take a lead at halftime. Morris hit tight end McKinney in the fourth quarter with a touchdown pass to tie it up at 20. But then Lewis led a game-winning drive, ending in a field goal. And then Morris threw his second interception of the game right near midfield at the very end of the game to seal the win for the Bears. So great game here, great duel. The Bears ultimately coming out on top with a late field goal and a defensive stop. Surprising game here as the Colts defeated the Titans 24-18. Colts sacked Wayne Reimer 6 times. As you can see, Jaime Hernandez and David Tibbetts combining for 5 of their sacks, along with 7.5 tackles for loss. So huge game from the defensive duo there. Gary Freitag doing it all on the offense. 145 yards through the air, 120 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the ground. So a one-man show in Indianapolis that, covered with that great defensive performance, earned them a big upset win. Another big shellacking was the Cowboys over the New York Giants. Giants overmatched in this one and suffering the effects of a scheme change mid-season. So Lamar Johnson throwing for 4 interceptions. He had 3 consecutive drives where it ended with picks in the second half. And just every stat in this game is worse than the last. Giants had 7 total yards, 1 first down. They didn't cross the line of scrimmage until halfway through the second quarter. Meanwhile, Jesse Noel was literally perfect, 22 of 22 with 3 touchdowns. Hansen adding 3 touchdowns on the ground as well. So very dominant performance from the Giants in this one, or from the Cowboys in this one. Meanwhile, Giants still kind of trying to find their way. There was a close game between the Lions and Saints, with the Lions coming out on top thanks to some late game heroics by SimNFL, who kicked a 54-yard go-ahead field goal with just over a minute to spare to be the difference in this one. Ben Rivera put up a great show with 343 yards, but did have 3 interceptions as well. Randall Hansen, 273 yards, no picks, no touchdowns there, but doing just enough to lead the offense to victory again on that last drive. So credit to him, credit to Nevin for making all 4 of his kicks, 10 points, which the Lions desperately needed to escape with the win in this one. Tampa Bay Buccaneers put up a great show against the Panthers, but ultimately fell 24-17. They sacked Link 5 times, but they still picked him off twice, but still gave up 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. His favorite target, Fernando Owens, had 234 of those yards. So Carolina leaning on Owens heavily, with their top receiver still out injured. Meanwhile, Gregory Taphorn over 300 total yards. Another scrambler doing it with his arm and his leg, but not able to lead the team to a victory in this one. They kept it close. It was 3-3 at the half, and there were actually 3 lead changes in the fourth quarter, so this one was not decided until the very end when Taphorn's second interception came on their very last drive. So Panthers on the arm of Link, and then a late defensive stand, able to come away with a big division win in this game. Meanwhile, another very one-sided score. Denver Broncos all over the Jets, 69-0. Broncos had 7 rushing touchdowns in this one, again, using that running back by committee to great effect. So 1 from London, 2 from Khan, and 3 from Carter. Meanwhile, Jets struggling to get anything done. When you count in their sack yardage, they had negative 5 yards for the game. They had 2 first downs, one of which was granted to them on a defensive penalty from the Broncos. And the other one was a James Carter run where he hurt his ankle and was out for the rest of the game. So pure victory at best in that one. So yeah, Denver Broncos still looking dominant in the AFC. Big victory over the Jets there. Cincinnati Bengals also had a dominant win, beating up on the 49ers 35-10. Ronnie Jefferson, still the league's rushing leader in yards, added 194 this week, along with 3 touchdowns. Andrew Solano still trying to find the end zone, 172 yards and an interception from him. This game was close all the way. Browns eventually pulling ahead 23-20 in a nail-biter of a game. Checking my notes here. Browns were able to tie it after a Colton Hayes interception set them up with a short field. And they got another defensive stop and were able to get Abel Chapa in place for a game-winning kick. So he gets on the leaderboard today, going 3 of 3 on field goals and 2 of 2 on extra points. So does Hayes with that interception, and Juan Mora with 178 yards and a touchdown. Meanwhile, Miguel Aguilera doing very good with his passing, 23 of 29, 289 yards and 2 touchdowns. So strong performance from him, but Browns just able to sneak ahead there with that last late field goal and win the game. Raiders had a big offensive showing, beating up on the Minnesota Vikings, 32-13. James Hickson over 500 yards, hitting both Richards and Blank with over 160 yards each. Alex Williams doing his best with only 4 catches, but 112 yards and a touchdown. But Sinak and Williams being pretty much the only offense for the Vikings, and they were not able to keep pace with that high-profile attack of the Raiders. Another explosive offense in the Philadelphia Eagles. They put up 52 in this game, including 28 in the second quarter alone. Aaron Poole over 400 total yards and 5 touchdowns all put together. And Whit Wilson got on the board with a tackle for loss, sack, and also a fumble recovery as well. John Woodward had a great game for the Seahawks, over 250 total yards on 32 touches and a touchdown. Eagles, just offense, defense, special teams, altogether way too much of a team for the Seahawks to handle. And so Philadelphia coming away with a big victory in that one. Falcons and Cardinals. This one was a quiet game at first. It was 3-0 at halftime. But the Falcons, on the legs of Wayne Ricketts, who had over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, able to pull away late. Patrick Johnson still has not found the end zone, 142 yards. Stayed away from the interceptions today, but wasn't able to light a spark to get the Cardinals any more points. So strong start for the Falcons in this one. Had a wild game on Sunday night between the Ravens and the Rams. I believe this is our current record holder for most combined points, with 101 from both teams. David Chop and Phil Avila combining for over 1,000 yards passing and 11 touchdowns. Their top targets being Edwin Garcia, 216 yards, and then Anthony Larry, 374 yards on 23 catches and 4 touchdowns. Hall of Fame day from Larry, helping the Rams get to a dramatic offensive victory in prime time. And then finally, just recently on Monday night, a back-and-forth game between the Chiefs and Packers. Chiefs had a 21-point second quarter to take a lead. Green Bay came back with 2 touchdowns for a total of 12 points as they missed 2 two-point conversions. That got them just ahead. But then the Chiefs picked off Joseph Garibay at a crucial time, returned it to the 6-yard line, punched it in from there, and then held on to win the game there. So excellent performances from linebackers Roger Wise and Alan Riley in this one, both of them with tackles for loss and 2 turnovers apiece. Theo Scribner, the big stat line for this game, 4 touchdowns. He did throw a couple of picks as well. But excellent job through the air, gaining the lead early and then coming back to retake it in the final minutes for a win on Monday night. So, with all of that registered, here are my choices for Players of the Week. No surprise with Avila and Larry coming through for the Rams on that offensive performance. Michael Torgler as well, 211 yards, as I mentioned. I believe he's now second in the league in rushing yards, so great performance there. And then Fernando Owens as well, carrying the load for the Panthers. On defense, we mentioned Hernandez for Indianapolis, 4 tackles for loss and 3 sacks in that big upset victory over Tennessee. Riley and Wise both coming up with a pair of turnovers in the Monday night game. Great performances there. And then Chopper for Cleveland, hitting all 5 of his kicks, including the game-winning field goal in the final minute. So he's my choice for Special Teams Player of the Week. A couple of injuries to go over. The worst in severity was Brad Portis of Miami. With a neck sprain, he should be out about a quarter of the season. Tennessee lineman as well with a back tear for about 3 weeks. And then we have a couple of wide receiver ones who are out for Cleveland and Chicago. That's George Lovejoy and Richard McGuire, respectively. So those offenses are going to have to retool some things and figure out how to keep the ball moving without their quarterback's top targets, at least for a couple weeks. And then the Jets with James Carter out with that ankle bruise that he suffered against the Broncos, so he will be out next week. So, as promised, I've got a list here of 6 of the teams that have struggled so far. These are all 0-2 teams, and maybe teams that weren't expected to go 0-2 at this part in the season. So I'm going to be deciding, giving my best guess as to whether or not that trend is going to continue, or if there's going to be a chance for them to turn things around. Or if you want a very different analogy, we're going to swipe right or swipe left on these teams. That's not my area of expertise, but trying to stay relevant here. So, starting with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm still betting on them. I think they nearly beat Chicago, as we just saw. Put up a great stand there. I think they can focus on that running game and try to get back to that and lean on that for some offensive success. I know Coach hasn't been happy with Robert Morris, but again, I think the running attack can do well, and I know Coach has done great things at West Virginia with that roster, so have faith in them to turn things around and put up some more wins in a tough division. On the opposite side, I think Tampa Bay has started 0-2, fallen kind of flat, and they're about to face Dallas, Chicago in short order. They've also got Washington, the Rams, and Philadelphia all coming up. Now, part of that is because the NFC South is playing the NFC East this year, so all of those South teams are going to have to play a game against Washington, a game against Philly, a game against Dallas. So, maybe respectively or relatively, that's not as big a deal. But I mean, Carolina has already played their Washington game and they nearly beat them. So I think Tampa Bay is going to be off to a rough start, and it's going to be tough for them to catch up, especially with the surprising way that the rest of the NFC South is playing so far this year. The Jets, I think, have reason for optimism. They've had really terrible luck with injuries, with two different running backs going down, especially one they just traded for in a big, big deal. But I think they've made some bold moves to acquire a lot of talent, and I think that still has yet to pay off. I do hope for their sake, given that they have no draft picks, literally none in 2025. I do hope that is the case. But I think it will be. I think they have the overall and the coaching skill to put that all together in time and get some more wins. Same with the Vikings. I think they've played two excellent teams so far in Philly and Vegas, and have struggled to contain those. So while I would have loved to see more points out of that offense, I think they're going to get more opportunities against lower competition to do so. So I'm still tailing them. Unfortunately, the Patriots, I think, are going to stay where they are. I think after that loss to Atlanta and then a big loss to Miami, only getting 3 points before the backups were in, I think they barely escaped the offseason out of cap hell and are still dealing with that. Again, I do like Lions. I like Njoku. I think there's some potential there, but I think it's going to take a while to realize. So not as much this season. And then finally, the Cardinals. Patrick Johnson's been throwing too many picks. That offense just can't get out of its own way. And just from a sim perspective, Cardinals appear to be kind of leaderless at the moment, which is always tough in a very active and competitive league. So I don't see their fortunes changing anytime soon. So those are my picks for left and right, fade or tail on the 0-2 teams. Let me know what you think, and whether you agree or disagree, and why. All right, and now we're back with another guest segment today. I'm excited to have Jieret with me, the Las Vegas general manager and temporary coach. Jieret, thanks for being on my little show.
Thanks for having me.
So, strong start to the season for Vegas. How do you feel about your 2-0 start there?
We're feeling pretty good about it. I would say that uh, while we thought we would take a little bit of a step back, we still saw ourselves in playoff contention. So um, I don't want to say that we expected a 2-0 start, but we thought we could definitely attain it. Monday night, we've got the Dolphins, so that's definitely going to be a test for us to see if we're still in the upper tier of the NFL teams.
Mm-hmm.
And if we want to be somewhat competitive, we kind of have to be with technically us being in third place right
now. Yeah, you don't feel like a third place team, that's for sure.
No.
Especially not with Hickston, Blank, and Charles Brown lining up on the offensive side. That's not a third place lineup, especially with the way the sim is treating a long pass right now.
No, that we thought briefly in the offseason about trying to tank, but with Blank and Brown and Richards and Hickson, and then picking up Prayer and free agency, there was just no way we could do a full tank. So I guess we're going to try the retooling on the fly method and see how that works for us.
Yeah, well, I mean, statistically, I gotta say, it seems like it's worked so far. And you guys are coming off a division championship too. I know a lot of focus is on Denver after making it through as a wild card, but you guys were 14, 15 wins last season. You guys were top of the division.
14-3, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that sounds right. So yeah, I mean, not in case anyone has forgotten or is sleeping on the Raiders, I'm not, but for those who maybe don't remember who won the West last year, it was you guys.
Yeah, I mean, Teray, Banner, and everything, but then we ended up losing to Denver in the wild card round. So,
Yeah,
you know, it,
tough.
it, it felt like a big pile of whatever at the end.
Yeah, that was a tough draw. So, how do you feel like your window? So, do you feel like with this team, with this current structure, like that your window is like closing pretty rapidly after this season? Like this is the year to get it done?
Um, I don't want to say that the window's closing per se. I'll say that it's narrowing. That's for
Mm,
sure because Hickson and Agnew especially are not getting any younger.
hmm
Um, and if we're being honest, Charles Brown, he's giving us great value now, but that the end of that contract's going to look pretty rough if he's still around.
hmm
Um, but as I said earlier, we're planning on retooling some. So rather than the window closing, I think that it might narrow for a little bit, and then um, I think that with some good luck and some good drafting, we'll be able to jam the window back open and keep it open for a little while. In some ways, we're kind of the anti Broncos because the Broncos are just pushing all in every year,
hmm
them and the commies. Meanwhile, we're trying to take the opposite tack. We're trying to be somewhat sustainable in flags fly forever and all that, but we were we were a little late to that party, so
hmm
we might as well try and build over the long haul. And if we win something along the way, awesome. Definitely Blank and Hickson won't let us tank, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like there's gonna be not in addition to just like the reckoning that we know is coming with the Commanders and the Broncos, the way they've gone all in early, and gone very trade heavy with their cap management. I feel like in general, with like the trade rules going back to the way they were before, and like a lot of new contracts coming, we're kind of getting past all of the old generated contracts and all brand new ones. I do feel like that cap management is going to become more of a struggle. I mean, we see a lot of teams like right at the cap already this year, within 1 or 2 million, just
We're one
skirting
of
that
them.
line. And then as stars start to ask for more and as salaries start to inflate, I feel like that might play into it maybe a little stronger than it has before.
Yeah, and one of the questions we really have that haven't been answered yet is retirements.
Mm,
We have quite a few 12, 13-year players, 11, 10. So when exactly are they going to roll off the books, and how much
mm-hmm,
salary are going to free up when they go?
mm-hmm,
Um, that's definitely going to play into it some, especially for well, I want to say it would play into it for teams like Washington and Denver, but you know, the way they've been making trades, they are basically looking for the freebie year and then kick them
mm-hmm.
off the team afterwards.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we've seen like free agent veterans with higher levels kind of effectively not being picked up by teams. But yeah, we haven't seen a player on a team on a contract still performing and saying, "Hey, it's time to hang it up," which we know definitely happens in the league.
Right.
Um, yeah, so that'll be an added wrinkle as well. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna pivot. So if you have another thought on that, let me know.
Yeah, cap management is definitely important. We kind of took a hit on that one already. Um, You may have noticed that we ended up having to trade our stalwart defensive tackle Robert Monzel to the Giants in
Hmm
the offseason. Um, we signed him to a contract. He wanted more than I was comfortable with, but um, we thought he was somebody that we had to have because we really didn't have any good replacements for him. And then as the offseason went along, it the cap situation just became kind of untenable. So we just had to
hmm
eat a huge chunk of his salary and basically take cents on the dollar
hmm
just to give ourselves the flexibility to keep the rest of the team together.
Yeah, yeah. That's how it happens on the business side. You make deals and you make cuts and you try to make it work however you can, keeping together who you need. Um,
Yeah.
So just briefly, zooming back a little bit, any teams outside of maybe you and your division that have surprised you, made unusual moves, or really showed up in a big way, or not shown up in a big way in the first couple of weeks? Anything that across the league that maybe you're noticing or that surprised you?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that um, we knew the Cowboys were going to look good. And granted, we knew the Giants were on a scheme change, but I was not expecting to see a 73 nothing pasting. Um, that was just ugly. I think more than just a specific team right now. I'm going to pivot and I'll come back. It's more about some of the teams that are putting up bucket loads of points.
Mm.
I knew the Rams were going to put up points for days, but then their opponent, the Ravens, put up 45
Mm-hmm.
in a loss. The Eagles put up 52. We already talked about the Cowboys and 73. And yeah, Denver, they scored 69. Nice, got it. Um, but more than that, I think one of the teams that kind of surprised me, and not necessarily in a good way, I think, is Pittsburgh.
Mm.
Is I know your division's a lot tougher than it was last year. All of you leveled up in the off season,
Mm.
but I'm not quite, I don't quite know what happened to Pittsburgh. I was not expecting them to be the only winless team in your division,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not quite sure what happened. Morris played so well, and then and Smackums, I'm sorry, I love you and all, and I've done like zero looking at your stats or anything or your box scores, but I'm not quite sure what happened to Morris and company for them to kind of struggle the way they have.
Yeah. He called that they would be back on a downswing, especially coming off the number one seed in the AFC. And I think
Oh,
some people were like, "Nah, you're gonna be fine." And but yeah, it was precipitous. Now, admittedly, that was against a very good Bengals team, and then they pushed Chicago to the limit before falling in the last couple of minutes. So that was they were really close to getting one on Chicago. Um,
mm,
so yeah, we'll have to see. But also with a first place schedule in the AFC, it's not like it's going to get much easier either.
that's
Um,
true.
so yeah, so that's been a tough one. Um, so yeah, I think there was some writing on the wall there, but we'll see if 0-2 becomes, if they bounce back from that or if that continues, and depending on their schedule and how Morris does, see how that plays out.
Yeah, they have the Cardinals coming up, and I don't think Carmen's been around for a while, so
Yeah.
that might be a little bit of a breather. And then they have you in week 4.
Hmm.
So, well, let's see. They got Arizona, you, then Seattle, then Jacksonville. And I think Jacksonville's been playing pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's going to be a tough road to hoe for them, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. All right. I mean, I don't have anything else prepared. Any final thoughts you want to share about? I mean, anything across the league? Floor is yours.
Uh, I think I hope things even out a little bit as as the weeks go on. Um, but I'm a little saddened to see that the field general quarterbacks
Mm-hmm.
are not playing the way that they looked in the off season or in
Mm-hmm.
the preseason, I should
Yeah.
say. There seemed to be, and I get it. I know part of it was the whole oops RPO bug, but still, I was hoping to see like your guy and
Mm-hmm.
who is it? Tennessee and Green
Yeah.
Bay, I think, is the other
Yeah.
ones that come to mind.
Reimer in Tennessee and Garibay in Green Bay, definitely all
Yeah,
underperforming for sure.
yeah. I mean, I'm not running a field general quarterback, but I'm probably one of the few that wouldn't mind it in the right scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let culture hear that part. But yeah, no, I really don't know. Well, I guess I should say I hope that the field general, that, all of you running field generals, whether you're West Coast or run and shoot or whatever, that something normalizes there, because it's really a shame to see the field generals kind of underperforming for yet another year, at least in the early going.
Yeah, we had a big decision on because we just re-signed Rivera and he hadn't looked great, but I was like, I don't like the look of bringing in a rookie quarterback, so we signed him to a 2-year deal for a lot of money, but thinking okay, we'll get a year with the new scheme to see how that looks. And then, if that doesn't work out, 1 year to prepare for whatever's next. But yeah, so far it certainly seems like it's leaning on the whatever's next. Because for whatever reason, just the accuracy and especially the IQ just isn't really materializing. And I know Tennessee said the same thing about Reimer, who is closer to the prime of his career and should be looking better than he is. So I'm with you there, and I don't have any easy answers. But I feel that pain.
That totally, and again, not a dig at the devs or the admins or anything, because I know Jack and Squad about how to balance this stuff, but
yeah,
no easy solutions that I can find right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to have a Peyton Manning come into the league and just really show what that archetype can do in the right hands and with the right settings and the right offense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, hey, I'll let you go, but thanks so much for stopping by, man. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and opinions.
Thanks for letting me blather on.
Yeah. Good luck on the rest of the season.
Thanks. You too.
Looking ahead to week 3, Thursday night, we have Pittsburgh going out to the desert to face Arizona. Again, 2 teams that I think might have similar records on paper, but I think are still going in opposite directions. We will see if that comes to be true. And then in the morning, we have a slate of great division games with Baltimore going to Cleveland, and then a big heavyweight fight with Washington going to Philadelphia, 2 undefeated teams in that very, very strong NFC East going head-to-head. And then New Orleans and Atlanta, 2 surprising teams in the South. The winner there will having the inside track at keeping pace with Carolina for the division lead. So excited to see what happens there. Moving to the afternoon, another great division game, Kansas City going to Denver. Denver's been absolutely dominant for 2 weeks. We'll see if Kansas City can make any headway there. And then Green Bay at the Chargers, 2 teams that suffered very, very close losses, looking to rebound there. That one will be in LA. And then primetime, yet another great division matchup with Detroit going to Chicago. Always great when 2 teams from the black and blue division get to face off. So we'll get to watch that one. And then we'll finish things off Monday night with Vegas going to Miami. So 2 excellent passers in that one competing on primetime. Miami with the home field advantage. We'll see what happens there. So I think an excellent slate coming up to us next week. Excited to see how it all plays out. That is it for my content today on the SimNFL show. Thank you everyone for stopping by. Stay safe and have fun.